Hello everyone, welcome to Cave of the Cross Apologetics. I am Patrick, and I'm going semi-solo to this. No Tony for this episode, but I had a thought, and I figured I have something to say about this. Is there anybody else who might have something to say? And of course, I have a wonderful group of friends that also have things to say about things. And so to this episode, this is going to be kind of a discussion on kind of a focus on dads, kind of a focus on homeschool, but also in a general way as well that is applicable to anyone in the education space. So let me introduce my co-host for this episode, and then we'll kind of get into the topic. But Jeff Park has returned graciously. Thank you, Jeff, for coming back on the show.
Yeah, it's so great to be here. My triumphant yet gracious return.
That's right. Well, Jeff Park is the executive director of the Alberta Parents Union, which advocates for parents to educate their children in any way they see fit. Shocking that you're going to trust parents to do things that might be beneficial to kids. But whatabouts? Well, we might get to some of those whatabouts today. But check out this group at albertaparentsunion.ca, and don't let the Canadian aspect fool you, as signing up for this free newsletter on policy and government outreach is sadly universal, and it's applicable pretty much see your country, and you can steal his talking points and make them yours, as I do, and it makes you sound a lot smarter. So also feel free to support him with whatever version of monetary fiat that you wish. Gold, I'm sure, is probably acceptable as well, but that can be done elsewhere. You can find previous episodes of Jeff talking about theology in episodes 150 and 151 on Cave of the Cross, and also the Christian's responsibility to educate their children in episodes 191 and 192. Again, we're very verbose in our talking about things. Jeff is also a husband and father of 4 children, a great Christian, and third, most importantly, my friend. So I asked him to come on here. So Jeff, today I want to endear myself to our Christian audience by slamming Christian homeschool moms and insulting hardworking Christian dads. So I brought you on to help me do that. So that's what we're going to do.
Okay, this sounds like it will not hurt me with anyone who currently supports me financially.
That's right. Well, so obviously you're a advocate for kind of the freedom to educate in what we might call the traditional sense, or government schools, homeschooling. I mean, just the wide swath of educational purposes, and a mixture of any of those things that could happen, including just installing your kids into a 4-H community might be that weird extra thing that you do so that they know how to milk cows, or wrap the perfect present, which is always the part of the 4-H models at the country fair that I always liked watching, because it was like, who goes into 4-H to wrap a present, but that's a well done wrap present. And so all those avenues are available to us, and that's great, especially with the advent of the internet, the meteoric rise within the past 10 years of kind of getting out from under the shadow of having to sneak homeschooling in. I was talking to a friend of ours who she was in, I believe, Minnesota or someplace a little bit more out west than us here in Michigan, where she said that for all her life, she had to duck down in the car when they were during school hours. Truancy officers would be sent to them, but here in Michigan, it's never been illegal, and so she's a very big advocate of protecting any regulation from coming across the Michigan legislature, and we've had to deal with many here in the past couple of days of incrementally trying to get government's foot in the door more. And so I see all that, and it's a great we have great resources. But one of the things that I look out at the landscape of is, especially just type in homeschool in YouTube and try and find a dad in there. It's dominated by moms. look at the resources that come about, how it's structured, how the ads are placed. It's all geared towards mom. And granted, that's, going to be a marketing thing. And so I don't poo-poo marketers for, hitting their audience. Events, meetups, teachers, tutors, organizations, they're all aimed at women, for women, by women. And so what I'm thinking is are we losing something within that by not including dads? And so this isn't my cheeky attack of saying dads, you're not doing enough, but we'll kind of get into that. But I kind of want to talk about what is the role of dads in this new landscape of education for children. And it doesn't always have to be just homeschooling. It could be just in the traditional sense of government education as well. And, what are we losing if all dad is just the money bags to buy the curriculum and it's all done by mom? So first, I want to say is this a problem, or could this be a problem that you see it as either from a policy side or, from your pedagogy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I first of all, though, I just want to echo your sense about these things because I am so professionally obsessed with education policy, I actually started getting ads on my Facebook feed for baby wearing yoga, just because it's like, oh, obviously you're a mom then, right? Like clearly you can't be a dude and this interested in education. Here are the places you might want to wear your baby and
which is also allowed by dads. So I'm just saying.
yeah, absolutely. I suppose it's actually I'm all about getting cuddles with babies. I
Absolutely.
wouldn't be opposed to wearing one of my babies. I am sort of opposed to yoga, but anyway. But actually, that's sort of a story about is I got I was, because I go to the we call them IPPs, the individualized performance plan. I think they're called IEPs, individualized education plans, in most of the states. Anyway, there is, so when a child has a special need and you're required, one of the nice things they do when a child has a special need is most places require you by law to spell out what are you going to be doing to fulfill that special need. Yep. Have a meeting with the parent on, here are all the steps we're going to take to fulfill this child's special need. And then the parent has to actually sign off on the plan. Seems like the kind of thing you could do for all kinds of education, not just special needs. But anyway,
well, and I've taken advantage of that because I've figured, listen, my money's already being stolen. If I need some help with scissor cutting and figuring out tools to help the hand-eye coordination or speech therapy, that's something that I've alleviated myself, and so that definitely makes me less libertarian than the perfect libertarian out there. But I've filled out many, not many IEPs, but I've put my signature on those as well. Yeah.
Okay. So they're IEPs in Michigan, and I think that's a normal terminology in the U.S. I could be wrong about that, but so I attend all those meetings for our kids who have a special need that's being addressed by an IPP in our context. At one of those meetings, the occupational therapist mentions that they're having one of my kids. They're teaching him yoga poses, and she saw my nostrils flare when she said the word yoga, and she's like, "Sorry, what I mean is we have a couple of different stretches, and it's like we're not doing this." And she immediately knew that we're not doing the spiritual stuff. There's no bowing to each other's chakras or whatever the terminology is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. Stretching is good. Stretching is fine. So anyway, so yeah, first of all, I've definitely noticed the same thing. I think it's just, first of all, biblically, it's really hard to see. The Bible is very clear. Fathers, teach these things to your children. Fathers, set up these monuments so that when your children ask you why these monuments are here, it's not just because the fathers are the ones with the muscles to put up the stones, right? That's not the only like gender role there is here. There's this expectation of some level of a gender role where the children are going to be asking the dad, why are these stones here? And then the dad should be the one prepared to answer that. Others are the ones that are commanded to raise up their children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, specifically, not in exclusion of mothers, but the specific commands are frequently given to fathers. That Colossians 3:21 says, fathers, do not provoke your children so they will not become disheartened. And this is after it talks about children, obey your parents in everything, for this is pleasing to the Lord. And fathers, specifically, don't provoke your children. Now, that might be because fathers are particularly apt to provoke our children of the two parents. That's possible. That's a possible reading.
Right.
It's also possible that the bulk of the formation in the types of things that could be frustrating are coming from the fathers.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I've noticed that. So I like teaching the math aspect to it, and sometimes I'm teaching in a different way, or I'm not readily available to give the answer to move the progression forward, and then it's like, well, I want mom to do the homework with me today, or the schoolwork today. Like, yeah, I know that, but also I'm going to sneakily teach you algebra by doing this, and if we get this down, you're going to be 3 grade heads up, ahead of schedule, and when it comes to long division, you're not going to be so scared. So yeah, I mean the provocation is definitely a tantalizing thing for us fathers to do.
Yeah, I think we have a tendency to drive a little harder, to be more goal oriented than child oriented than how are we the word disheartened here is like the willpower. How are we preserving the willpower of the child? Moms are a little more naturally inclined to be how do I preserve the heartedness? How do I preserve the heart of this child, where dads are a little more inclined to be like, how do I drive towards the goal here? Yeah.
It's funny. That reminds me so much. My youngest has a secondary baby tooth that came in after she lost one of her first one. And so we're talking to the dentist about getting it pulled. It's like, but we're kind of, my wife took her and said, kind of nervous of how she would respond. It's like, well, we actually asked that moms don't show up that day and that the dads do, because moms are more likely to kind of preserve that, are you doing okay? How do you want to take this? And the dad's just like, my dad did this with a pair of pliers, and I still have, core memories from that formed. We're going to do this in a safe way, but we're going to get through it together. So it's just fun.
We did it with
even in that, it's like, well, we've actually noticed it's best for the dads to be on point for that time.
That makes sense. Yeah. And I mean, I think for the vast majority of parents, which one has to take out a splinter? Right? Like, same deal, right? Like, dad has to take out a splinter because mom's going to have a hard time not just saying, let's leave it for a few days and see what see whether it pushes out by itself.
Yeah, Dad's like, hold on, let me get out my 84 knives from the Swiss Army knife that I have.
It's sometimes it can be really hard. There's a lot of grief involved in pulling out that tiny piece of wood.
There's a reason it's Aesop's fables and not Aesop's wife's fables.
Yeah. It turns out that a child very much needs both a mother and a father. Shocking, I know. But and just the biblical paradigm for what we would think of as the most vulnerable, right? That's the terminology we as moderns moderns and non-woke, I guess. The terminology we would use is the most vulnerable. Most frequently, the word the Bible uses for that is fatherless. Fatherless is the paradigm for vulnerability. Fatherlessness is what makes you vulnerable. And that's not obviously in exclusion of mothers. Obviously, a child needs both of their parents.
Sure.
But
we were just reading about Timothy today in our study of Acts in our family
your
time.
Mother and your grandmother.
Grandmother, and he was known. He was known for all these great qualities even before Paul abducted him and circumcised him and took him on the road.
There are plenty of biblical examples of women doing this work, obviously, and there's obviously, and one of the reasons I feel that anything but home education is acceptable in the first place is that obviously you can always delegate the work. You can never delegate the responsibility. The responsibility remains with the parents and with the father. I would argue biblically, in particular, that the education of our children remains with us. That responsibility always remains with us. And since the responsibility remains with us, be sure you don't delegate the authority that comes with that responsibility. So you need to work hard to retain the authority over your child's education, even if you delegate some of the work of your child's education. And so, obviously, though, delegating it, the father delegating some of this work to the mother would be obviously acceptable. And I know that practically that's how many families will find that arrangement to be the most practically possible. If you're delegating, if as fathers we delegate some of the work to our wives, that doesn't absolve us from our biblical responsibilities that are, again, so many of them are specifically given to us. And I'm focusing on dads because we're both dads. Right. There's plenty of other things to say, but so many of those responsibilities are specifically given to fathers. Obviously, delegated to the mom, that makes lots of sense. If you then do, though, as I was indicating, delegate it to someone other than the mom, I would argue that you introduce a second reason in terms of the paradigms in the scriptures. I'd argue you introduce a second reason why the father needs to stay very involved in a child's education if it's delegated to someone outside the home. And that's because the pattern in scripture is that men are built for conflict and for contention in a way that God has very intentionally not built women. And this is a corollary to the to the tooth and splinter conversation. I feel like, and to the fathers not exasperating their children part of the conversation. Like, I feel that these are all of a piece with each other. Is so it. I think you and I and your listeners can agree that it is sinful to send women into combat to protect men. I'm carving out that we can agree on this because apparently our governments have more trouble with this concept. And there's some discussion of selective service in your context of the draft eligibility of women becoming eligible for the draft, which is certainly a sign of the downfall of civilization. But
it depends on how black-pilled you are too, because maybe you want to say, all right, let's have everyone be equal, and so just take a little bit of the black pill, but don't take the whole bottle.
Yeah, no kidding. And I guess that's one of the is I'm not particularly black-pilled, but right. I would become so were my daughters eligible for the draft. I'll tell you that. So we can agree as Christians, let's say, we can agree that it would be sinful to send women into combat to protect men. As theologically conservative Christians, we have broad agreement that there's a related idea that it's actually sinful to send women into authority within the church to protect against heresies, to protect against to protect the unity and integrity of the body of Christ. That is a level of intellectual and theological contention that it's sinful to push women into that role. I'm not binding anyone's conscience here, but I'm going to say that let's think then as fathers whether, especially in a situation where we have concerns about the school, there is contention to be had at the school. So remember, I was applying this to if you're delegating some of the work of educating your children outside the home. And so if there is any sort of contention to be had there, if there is theological and worldview battle to be done over the education of your children, I wonder how appropriate it is to send your wife into that fight. I think guys, like, God has made us to take up that responsibility and to contend for our children.
Yeah. Well, and I think you can see the repercussions of that here in America, because after something happened in the 2020s, we had people suddenly realize through watching over their kid's shoulder, what are you learning now? And right. What's in your library now? And we can talk about the impact, whether any kid is actually going to the library and checking these out or what have you. But it took a letter from the FBI saying, hey, parents are getting involved. We may need to look into parents, when fathers got involved and fathers started reading these books too. And fathers were the ones that were holding people in contempt. And they were fathers who were threatening the arrest of in some sections of school board members. So yeah, it shows just what happens when everything reverts back to itself. And then, there are men involved. There are men in areas where gun rights are a normative thing where you can run for the sheriff and win and not be held down by any federal agency because that's the point of sheriffs. Oh, well, now this could be terrorist organizations in place here, and we need the Federal Bureau of Investigations to come and save these poor people on school boards.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I was even just thinking about like the local school level, but certainly if it's going up to the school board level, and I guess we have seen more. I'd say it's less unusual to see the dads take the lead at that level. Although you do still have an organization, a national organization called Moms for Liberty, that I'm going to gently suggest maybe should mostly be dads. But
or how about drunk driving? The moms against. I mean, how long has that organization been a thing? And look what's happened. But yeah, so and that's part of it, right? So why? It's because we've kind of regulated education to a feminine role, a feminine aspect, and I think that there's kind of two reasons for that, and it picks into our question here of could this be a problem? We definitely agree. Whether you're kind of whatever path you're going to take for your children's education, the father is going to be the main breadwinner, or at the very least, the person who's going to do most of the work on the professional end, I guess I would say. You could still have a parent with two households, but for the most part, the mother is mostly going to be the primary teacher there, as you said, within the confines of that stipulation of the spheres of responsibility. And so there's that. And so that comes to pass with our marketing aspect. But then when we talk about, and this has been happening since, I guess, the 90s, from at least what I know of when I was a child of yore. But the right tended to talk about, well, there's a lack of men in government schools. And so you don't get the benefits of good male role models there.
Right.
There's a discussion had in there. And so then even within the confines of that aspect on the local level, on the teacher level, on the curriculum level, it's always been a thing, especially for boys, but also, the boys aspect is more clear because you're seeing the contrast of, the boy wants to dig in the sand and learn how trucks work, and the teacher wants to, talk about how much a bag of apples cost if you add 5 apples to it. And so it's like, well, is that teaching? Is that talking on their level? But I think you could do that so much with girls, and it's something that we've talked about already. Is that the not so much coddling, but it's nice to have that opposite spin of having a male role model talk to girls about things. In fact, I'll post all these research facts in the video when I do it. But one researcher finds that homeschooling gives young people, and I'm here talking about young people, or homeschooling, but I'm kind of broadening it out, it gives them an unusual chance to ask the questions such as, who am I and what do I really want? And through the process of asking such questions, gradually answering those questions and having that mom and dad aspect, or the male and female aspect into it, I think helps to educate. Home-educated girls develop the strength and resistance abilities that give them an unusually strong sense of self. And so, obviously, I'm going to be advocating for homeschooling, but even if you can't, having that dual nature of the mother and father there, being that primary influence, even if you're not the primary educator there, but you're the primary influence on that education, I think if we lose that, if the dad steps back and just says, I'm here to put the money on the table, the mom does whatever they want with it, I'm tired, and we can understand that, right? We're all there. We're all fighting whatever Federal Reserve of our nation state is at work. We understand things like bills, and we always have. But if we step back too much, we're losing that influence for our kids to ask questions in a setting where you're not throwing them a book on why is my body changing. You're having a sit-down discussion as both a mother and a father to talk about different things. The dad's going to be protective. When the boys say this, they're lying to you because I used to say that, or I understand the mentality of that. The mothers are going to have, when this happens, you're going to need this type of hygiene, and from both a male or a son and daughter approach. So I worry about having it be too female centric, that the dads then are going to be further step back. Our good friend Katie Room, who runs periapsexpress.com, she's always talking about how the major book publishers aren't writing to a male audience because men don't read. Well, yeah, men don't read what you're putting out there. And so they're taking a step back from men. And so the men take a further step back away from them. And so then it's just that self-fulfilling prophecy. And then you find men who are writing or who are reading, 1940s sci-fi books because, they're the best, but also that's who wrote them for them. And so they're finding a new audience in that. So I'm seeing that as the problem or the potential problem.
And by the way, it's almost a joke that the history section at any bookstore is the grads and dads section, right? Yeah. It's people doing graduate work and men between 35 and 55, right?
Yeah. Which kind of dad are you? Are you the Civil War dad or are you the World War II dad?
Exactly. Yeah. I did not even realize how true it was. The joke that you basically are like assigned from on high a war that you're unrealistically obsessed with.
Yeah.
And it's like for me, it ended up being World War I. Not the one I would have chosen if it were like actually up to me. It's like, it's almost as if there was like an assignment desk that said, okay, now that you're 35, this is the war you're obsessed with. No, you don't have a choice in this. This
is the other angel from It's a Wonderful Life that you get.
It's not that men don't read. Men read different things. And yes, if you're exclusively publishing the exact kind of things, I think our friend Katie Room actually retweeted a study that the Alberta Parents Union shared on Twitter that we summarized as study. Boys were more interested in war, comedy, sports, and science fiction, and more excited about informational texts, whereas girls preferred narrative books and romantic stories. And then our commentary on that was, what are your boys being assigned at school?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I believe our friend Katie Room quote tweeted that, and it was tying it into the issues with TradPub that you're mentioning. And yeah, there's some of the statistics in that study. This is from the Institute for Family Studies. It's a relatively new, June 5th, 2024. It's called "What's Wrong with Boys at School," and some of the stats in that study, of the top 10% of students, 2/3 are girls. A different study from Institute for Family Studies pointed out that the American Psychological Association now says that girls exceed boys in every single subject in school, including history. Which is interesting since that's what boys should be better at, given this. But yeah, women outperform men in terms of school readiness in kindergarten, GPA, college enrollment, and degree attainment. Of the top 10% of students, 2/3 are girls. Boys comprise nearly 2/3 of the bottom 10%. of students. Um, and boys are 2.5 times more likely to be suspended or expelled. 72% of all expulsions in this one data set and 70% of suspensions were of boys. So imagine that you had, I don't like playing the conservative boomer, like, imagine if the situation were reversed, but I'm just, but let's just, I think it genuinely is harder for people to realize. I think we're so, I think education has, as a field, has been so effeminized as a field that it's almost difficult. It's almost difficult for us to see it without sort of seeing what a 5-alarm fire it would be if it were reversed.
Mm-hmm.
If all those statistics were the other way around, and 95% of elementary school teachers were men, wouldn't we be saying? Wouldn't that be like the only thing we talked about in education?
We'd be talking about the patriarchy, keeping women down, as you know, we just want them in big hoods, pumping out babies, and look at all the bad things that are happening. Yeah, and same thing with it's with ADHD being diagnosed in public schools of boys 2.5 times higher than girls. And so, you know, there might be a factor to that, but the fact that it's happening in government schools there, but is it just the boy's energetic nature? And so you need the father to come in and say, hey, settle down, but also, hey, we're getting real rambunctious here. Let's go outside for 15 minutes, shake this off and go back inside. Or, let's learn about how dump trucks work by filling up this bucket with a shovel. Isn't this going to be great? And I'm going to explain this to you. And you might not get anything from it, but there's going to be that memory exist. And then I'm going to go back again and say, remember when we talked about fulcrum? Well, here's, how a dump truck uses fulcrum as a simple machine in this big complex thing. And you're like, oh, whoa, cool. It's like the thing that Dad was talking about in science.
This has ripple effects throughout the rest of society, because when boys don't learn to read, one of the ways they often handle the social stigma of not being able to read is with violent outbursts. Kids that engage in violent outbursts are much more likely to continue to be violent throughout their lives and be imprisoned. There's a direct connection. I saw a prisoners advocacy organization that was advocating for prisoners to actually be taught how to read.
Interesting.
Most of them never were actually taught how to read. And you go, oh, well, hang on a second. Maybe there's a connection between them never actually having been taught to read. This was a prisoners advocacy organization in Canada, by the way. So this is not even, I imagine that you would see, maybe I could imagine that might even be a stronger relationship in the United States, because sure seems like the high crime areas and the and the worst outcomes areas.
But maybe that's why we also have the class clowns that become comedians. Maybe just we have the plethora of comedians in this country. No offense to our comedian friends out there. But
yeah, it's exactly. Acting out comedically is one of the things that boys are very likely to do when they can't read. I would imagine you'd find a similar rate of never having been taught to read among professional comedians as the prison population. Just obviously, one of those is a much more positive response to that outcome than the other. Anyway, so So yeah, it sure does seem like, hey, maybe they never having been taught to read in the first place might be related to the fact that they're in prison now. But then we also know that this gap in attainment between men and women, where now women are much more likely to have more educational attainment than men, it's bad for family formation. People aren't getting married,
Right.
Because because the you tend to marry someone of a similar level of educational attainment
Right.
as yourself, in part because you're likely to meet them at an educational institution. But it's actually from a family formation perspective, it's imbalanced. Women having the more educational attainment than men is worse for family formation than men having more educational attainment than women.
Right. Right.
Even fewer marriages are forming because of that gap than it would if it were the other way around.
Yeah.
So we're having
we see that in higher
problems.
education, where women are. I think is it something like they're 4 times more likely now. It could even be more of going to college, which there's an argument against that as well.
Sure.
For anybody, not just women, for anybody.
Yeah.
But also then you go out in the world, and if you're a woman who's got a career and you're trying to match with said guy, who are your prospects and what do they bring to the table? Not so much in a exchange information, although that's where our secular relationships are going these days. But are you going to want to marry the person who might make $80,000 a year, but also adds nothing in the conversation other than the paycheck? Well, hopefully for the Christian, the answer is no. But there are always defeaters to those that can get in play. He's a man of God who reads only World War II books, but is the bricklayer who brings home the bacon. The rank choices of the Christian are going to be different than the secular person who's going to look for, I need to match someone on that level. I can't talk sports every single day, or we get the type of relationships we see in Married with Children type of sitcoms where everyone knows that relationship would never happen. So what do we stand to lose here? And by fathers not being not so much the primary caregiver of education, but not playing this more central role. And we've kind of talked a little bit about this with the responsibility, the breakdown of the first level of government that God instituted was the government of the family after establishing, creation and creating it all. So he's got the initial government, but the government of the family is there. And so the
creature creator, the next level of government,
the wide gap. Yes. So there we understand that the father can't lead the family well if he's out of sync that way. But I also was thinking too that kids not being taught in a different way adds to that. The way that the structure of homeschool curriculum is laid out is there very helpful. And if one doesn't work for you, try 82 of them. Now you can almost say you have too many choices. It's the Bernie Sanders. There's too many deodorants out in the world, and that's suddenly a problem. It's like, well, only if you're going to sit there and do a smell test for each one of them. So we're over-inundated with resources. That's not the problem, but it's sometimes, well, I wasn't taught that, or here's a way that I was taught in a different way where, we're learning money instead of looking at it in a book. We actually get it out, or we play pretend of going to the store and talking about, how to make change and things like that. So teaching in the different way, I think, would would falter because the way that the wife thinks, the way the man thinks in any relationship, in any way, if you're going to have a marriage relationship, that's one of the benefits of the marriage relationship is the father's going to look at cost ratio. The wife is going to look at the happiness quotient in there, which are both important, or vice versa. The dad says, I want to do this fun thing. The wife says, no, we can't do it this week, but let's wait until next month when I have a coupon. Like there's the benefits for that. So I think we lose the ability to teach differently to our kids in different ways. And they see dads, if they're off in the corner, just resting after a grueling day, but then not contributing to their education. It's, well, now I'm not going to dad for anything. I'm only going to mom for things. And we lose that underlying aspect of not so much you can go to your dad for these things. It's like, yeah, but I always go to mom for these things. And it becomes very focused then on one parent because that's always the route of, I need to learn something. I'm being educated that way.
This even has implications for, look, a child's education is a major portion of their upbringing in terms of time, attention, priority, and in all elements of a child's upbringing, both the Bible and research are very clear that authoritative and not authoritarian parenting. The extremes are permissiveness and authoritarianism, where the golden mean, if you will, is authoritativeness. And
relationship versus legalism, right?
Yeah. And I feel that this has dads and moms approach that balance differently and complementarily, which is why children should have both of them. And I feel that when dads aren't involved in education, it lets some of the dad's approach to authority slip away, which is the most obvious, slip away from this aspect of the child's life, their education. But it also fails to connect the dad with the tenderness that can come from talking about your child's educational needs will connect you to some of their tender needs as an individual person in ways that other aspects of their upbringing don't. And it also, look, if dad's being put in the role, one of the things that study that I was referring to says is that that he surveyed the books that are actually in public school classrooms, and 6.1 American public school classrooms, 6.1% of those books were nonfiction. When we know this is the one that I quoted as boys are going to tend towards nonfiction. 6.1% of the books being assigned in public school classes in the United States are nonfiction. So if the dad is having a conversation with the teachers and having to say, look, as the only person in this conversation who has been a little boy and no longer is a little boy who can't advocate for himself, to be a little bit vulnerable and to say, I wouldn't have read this stuff you're assigning him either. Maybe he needs something that appeals to him a little bit more. Mm-hmm. That is a way of, I think, being vulnerable and tender, and and filling that role of being the one to get in and be a little contentious if it's needed. That only a dad can provide a little boy. So I think part of what's happening here is that public schools don't have an incentive to actually serve the students. That's part of it. That's part of what's going on here.
Sure.
You're not going to get any argument from me here. That's what I say for a living. Okay.
But in a perfect world.
Yeah. So I understand that that's part of what's going on here. But I feel like part of what's going on here is that dad isn't coming along and saying, hey guys, did you realize you've assigned him like 3 diaries of teenage girls and not assigned him anything that he might be interested in?
Yeah. The American Girl route. Yeah.
And so that, maybe his inability to perform well in this English class might have to do with you're expecting him to be a girl. Right? So anyway.
Yeah. Well, and seeing dads care is a big thing.
Yes.
You know, again, we talk about, so dads during sports is, different than mom versus sports. You know, you'll find, hopefully you'll find less painted bodies on the dad's side or on the mom's side than on the dad's side, but for different reasons. But having that, my dad cares about this. He's at this meeting, or he's involved, or he is tired. My dad is always tired, but every Wednesday he's there, going over time or the times tables with me and quizzing me and making a game out of it, or what have you. Having the kids see, dad thinks this is important. I know dad is tired. My dad took the same route that I did. Work third shift so you can be involved in your kids' lives more and not have to pay babysitters as much. And I don't know where the chips fell on which was more important there. But that was an important aspect of I see dad tired, but also I see him then involved even in these things. Where sometimes it's like, I don't know how you're learning this. Go ask your mom on those things. But then go along with the child and say, let's figure out how long division is being done for you so that I'm not starting you from scratch. And so having fathers see that, or see fathers care about a subject, be super excited about, the history of it, because man, how many aspects of teachers did we see where the teacher just in government schools just degrade a subject that you're like, maybe economics was important, maybe history was important, maybe figuring out where I'm going to use this math later was important, and maybe I don't use it in my work life today, but having those connections form, that would have been important. That would have been interesting. All these YouTube videos that, this teacher is teaching calculus to a 5th grade class in an simple to easy understand way. Why do those videos go viral? Because we were never taught that way, because it's always been the cookie cutter way until you have this renegade come out. So having a father being interested in education and also being interested in a subject, I think, perks up the minds of kids and saying, I want my kids to say the same things that I say back to them. Failure is important because it's through our failure we can figure out what we need to learn. I always want to tell them that it's not that you're bad at math or times tables or pick your poison there. It's I don't know it yet, and so framing that the study on that, especially for girls, of when girls hear it's okay, girls don't do well at math. It triggers. It literally triggers.
The way that most frequently happens is mom says, "It's okay, I'm bad at math too."
Right. And where the dad's like, we're going to get it. We're going to get this. We're going to sit down and get this. Okay, I need to take a step back. I need a breather because I'm getting worked up, but we're going to go at this again. And so we're going to do it this different way. But when girls hear, it's okay, girls aren't usually good at math. Oh, good. I don't have to learn this because girls are usually bad at math. And then it's just, it inundates itself. So, but then be interested in something. My kids know, why do we care about history? Because in order for us to know where we are, we have to know where we came from. And my kids could tell you that, and we've said it in public before too. So I haven't had to help them, but I want them to be interested in those things, because once I got out of being educated, went, oh, those were really important, and I find it even more important now. In fact, we should probably find it a bit even more important on top of that. So that kind of holistic education aspect of, it doesn't have to be like, oh, my dad's reading War and Peace. It's, oh, hey, here's the planet Earth 14. Remember when we learned about coral reef today? Well, Australia has the biggest coral reef, and here's a 20-minute video on it. And just having that aspect of dad making those connections. Oh, dad's making connections. Mom's making those connections. I'm going to make those connections. I'm going to share those connections with mom and dad, and then be excited about that and play into that. I think that's what we lose when it's just, oh no, I'm only going to tell mom about those things. It's kind of like discipline, right? If dad, just wait for dad is always the thing, then dad's going to be the thing to be feared, and not you lose that relationship aspect. It's always then, the spank or the switch or the yelling, but also then the dad should always be willing to come down to the level, look him in the eye and go, all right, tell me what you did. And changing up that aspect of, it's never always you messed up, go to your room aspect. It's, all right, we're going to have a conversation about this because it's important. Ooh, dad's not just sending me to the room. He's at my level. He's talking to me. Or mom takes the opposite approach. It's not always, hey, let's talk about this. Let's have a family matters type of, in 30 minutes, we're going to resolve this aspect. It's like, no, you've messed up and you need to, oh, mom's not always the loving care person. That this means something important. So having that aspect of kind of that holistic education here by including dad, even when you're tired, even when the material is not something because it might not be the material that mom knows. Maybe we all have to find together as a family on exactly when we care about calculus and why. So.
It's not just society's part of being a parent is realizing that anytime there's a problem, even if it's not your fault, it's your responsibility. If my kid talks back to a teacher, it might not be my fault. I might not have raised them wrong. I might not have done anything wrong. I might not have implanted in their head the idea that they are allowed to disrespect that teacher. It might not be my fault, but it is my responsibility, right? It is, and that's just part of being a parent. So take that up to the society-wide. If society-wide, it seems like men are expected not to be involved in education, to the point that, look, statistically, when you're running for school board, being a woman is by itself just a huge advantage. Mm. Why is that? I think it's because, and I don't think it's just a sick society problem, although that's part of it. But I think part of it is we've let that happen as dads.
Right.
We've let people assume that dads don't care about education, and that really, at the end of the day, you can't assume that a man who's running for school board is doing it because he cares about kids. Whereas people do just simply assume that a woman running for school board is doing it because she cares about kids.
Right.
Right. And so even if manifestly even if manifestly the woman doesn't care about kids, she cares about teachers unions. And that's her whole thing. It's just, oh, no, she must really care about kids. And I've seen it over and over again. Not that I have seen that, but one of the things I've seen over and over again is that women who are concerned about the finances of the school, are concerned about the numbers, the priorities, about, hey, we're spending a lot on things that aren't really helping kids, and not spending much on things that do help kids, that kind of stuff. Women who run on that, it's just assumed they don't have to do all the work of. And obviously, we're talking about this because what really matters is the kid. Like, it's just assumed that that's what they care about. Whereas a man has a very hard time making an identical case. The words can be identical. They'll be heard completely differently. Oh, that man just cares about the money. Did you hear him? He went on and on about the money. It's like, but in part, like, what I'm saying is, I think we brought this on ourselves. I think men have too often shown little interest in the actual. I was at an event where people were basically talking about political strategy, and the two men were talking and saying that basically the conservative advantage on education is that we'll spend less on it. And that ultimately nothing, no left-wing advantage on education will ever be able to overcome that we'll take less tax money to do it. And so we just need to pivot to that. And while, by the way, like, I think it's terrible to forcibly extract taxes from people to pay for education and then waste most of that money, and do a bad job of it. And for instance, the Socialist Party in this province, there was a Socialist Party with the name Progressive Conservative Party before the Socialist Party.
Before it was cool, yeah.
That started this program in Alberta called the Class Size Initiative, and then it was continued by the Socialist Party, and they spent $4.1 billion on this class size initiative, and class sizes increased, which I don't think was what they meant by class size initiative. Right. I think that was one where you wanted it's like golf. You wanted the numbers to go down and not up.
I score.
I get that that's confusing because class size initiative might sound like you're trying to take the initiative to increase class sizes. I think that wasn't what they were doing.
Maybe the communists thought it was a different type of class.
yeah. So look, that kind of stuff is terrible, right? You spend $4.1 billion of actual people's money, right? Like, you robbed that money from real people and then wasted it. Yeah. And so obviously that's bad. I'm not saying that they're even wrong, but the way they're talking about it, and every woman who hears that is instantly going to go, maybe that's not the way we talk about it, right? I think but I feel like, particularly as conservative men, perhaps, but particularly, but as men in general, I think we've almost ceded the ground of these are people who care about kids. to the left and to women.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, like, if you just take that in your mind, it'd be like, hey, what would society look like if men sort of gave up the ground of caring about children to left-wingers and women? What would that result in? Oh, it would result in much like what society looks like right now.
Yeah.
It actually goes a long way towards explaining what happened. I think we have, not just with our own kids, although that is the most important place where I feel we've abdicated our responsibility, but we abdicated the public conversation about the education of children in such a major way. And I'm glad, look, I think COVID was let's cut that revert. No, I think YouTube is not quite so sensitive about these things anymore. But
also run by a woman, just FYI.
But the events of late 2019 through whenever, I think, thankfully, as he often does, God is turning evil for good. And I do see this shifting. I definitely see, like you said, men getting arrested at school board meetings is actually perversely a positive thing to see on the news.
Yeah.
So I think we are seeing things shift back towards men taking more responsibility. I'm just hopefully, I'm just encouraging a movement that's already happening. Is that we need to, because our generation, I'll speak for you and me, Patrick, because we're definitely of the same generation. But our generation is so much more involved in parenting generally than generations of men before us, and I think that's absolutely a positive and a good thing. So then, why can't we move into this section of parenting and stay there? Like, let's take the education of our children, most importantly, but then the education of children as a second order thing. Let's take that very seriously as men. Let's add our voices to this. Let's make sure that we're not accepting our relegation to the sidelines of this issue. And I think as men we have failed to live up to our responsibilities in this area in particular, and we failed to do that at the level of the home all too often. We failed to do that at the most intimate levels, and that's and this starts with family worship and expands all the way out. But then we can see it on the grand societal scale because we've also sort of advocated that responsibility at the societal and the political level as well. I think God knew that men needed to be told to do this, and women didn't, to some extent, right? Is one of the reasons I think that there are all these commands for fathers is because we're the ones that are more likely to think this isn't our responsibility, and that we can let someone else do that. It very much is your responsibility. You absolutely can delegate some aspects of the work. You absolutely can. One of the things that you're supposed to do as a man is do what you do best and buy the rest. so you absolutely can pay other people to help you with this. But what you can never delegate is the responsibility to see it done. The responsibility to see it done is yours and only yours. So that would be my my exhortation there. I'm not following
Amen.
your structure very well or answering your questions very well, but
No, that I think that's where I'd cut this first part and move on, which is what can dads and moms do. And so I was thinking about this. If only I knew some sort of policy expert that thought about things in not just a overarching, theological and logical sense, but also then dig down and go, what can we do? And I've got Jeff Park on speed dial. So when we talk about then, okay, but
the listeners don't know this, but that speed dial was slower than usual. But I'm glad.
It's all right. It's summer. We've got things to do. We've got dadding to do here. All right.
Exactly.
So let's talk about what dads can do first, because hopefully my 100% male listenership will eke some of this out. But I'm hoping this will be also beneficial for how can moms talk to dads about these things, and then vice versa. How can dads talk to mom about these things? And I think how we approach it, especially if we haven't been doing it, or if we want to do it, that's very important here. So just on the basic level, what can dads do? And to prime the pump, I can just say the easy one is be involved in some way. So you've got the co-ops. I teach at one, or I tutor for IRS purposes or what have you.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm involved in presenting evidence of what we're going to be continuing to do for the rest of the week initially. And so that's something I'm able to do with my time. My time is different probably than 90% of the people that listen or exist in the world. And that's fine. But even taking that one small aspect of teaching something to a group or to your children, finding that area to be involved, and maybe it's just going and saying, I'm interested in you, child's education, and I'm going to take this one day off to be at your co-op, or to be at your class, or to be at this event. I always think of Hook with Robin Williams, and he's neglected his children, so they want to join Captain Hook's menagerie of swashbucklers. And so I think that's the easy one to do. Show up to the baseball game, but show up to something where it's education, and it's either something important or hard or normal in the kid's life. And so you're saying, hey, I'm going to come on this day. Maybe it has to be the dad day, but maybe it doesn't have to be the dad day. And understand, and it's something where I think the older generation is talking so terribly to our generation younger, is it's not babysitting. You're never babysitting when I'm taking my daughters out for grocery shopping. It's not, did your wife let you off the leash to do this? No, I'm saying, no, I'm training my children. I'm going with my children. They're coming with me, and we're having a father-daughter day like we do every day. And it was always weird to talk to people like that, because it's like, no, I've got my daughters today, as in like, I have them right now. Like, it always sounded like I was a divorced dad being like, oh no, like this is my week. But I was always trying to find ways to be like, no, this is what you were saying. This is my responsibility. I'm training up my children in the way that they should go. When I lie down, when I go to the grocery store, when I wake up, when we're talking theology, or when we're just, going for a swim class. But, all these things of doing things in proper order and form, and mom's being there to say, oh, that was a good attempt. And the dad's saying, but we can scoop better when we're doing our backstrokes or what have you. And having that be a focus, and it doesn't always have to be critical. It can be a great job. I'm very proud of you that you tried this. Why do dads teach bike riding, right? Because like you were saying, it's the dads that are goal driven. The moms tend to be more, let's take a break, or let's kiss the boo-boo. Dad's like, nope, get back on. And more tears are probably shed in different ways there.
Well, I was listening to Al Mohler talk to um, talk to Abigail Schreier. So Abigail Schreier wrote. Your listeners might know her from having written the book about the social contagion of transgenderism among grade 7 to grade 9, or I'll translate to American, 7th grade to 9th grade.
Not a Christian book, but a very good book to know what's going on.
She's very much not a Christian. She's an atheist, leftist researcher who's been driven into the arms of Christian podcasters because she
we'll
wrote that
accept
book.
Anybody, please.
As you've demonstrated by accepting, the lowest rung of society, by which I, of course, mean Bob Murphy.
I thought you were going to talk about Canadians.
I knew you thought I was going to be self-deprecating, but I decided to be Bob-deprecating instead. This continues a joke from the we don't actually hate Bob Murphy. This continues a joke from the Anarchist Bible Study podcast that Patrick and I were both recently on. Anyway,
but if you actually want to watch Bob Murphy, episode 47 is the way to do so.
Yeah. Anyway, so Abigail
Schreier is talking to Al Mohler.
Abigail Schreier, she wrote that book, but now her current book is not Anxious. Oh no, it is Anxious Generation. Yeah, that's hers, right?
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah.
She and Jonathan Haidt. I have Jonathan Haidt's other book right here, so I was double checking that I had his name right. She and Jonathan Haidt both wrote similar books this year. So, but yeah, I think hers is the one that's called Anxious Generation. She was talking to Al Mohler about that book, and she used the example of she's sitting in the crowd at a sporting event. I think it was a football game, and a kid goes down hard, and it looked like the kid could be seriously hurt, but she was sitting close to his dad, and his dad said very quietly, but to himself, and maybe the mother as well, he's fine, get up. And you know what? Turns out Dad was right. He was fine, he got up, and he was fine. And she was using that as an example of the kind of, and I think she was saying dads in particular, the kind of influence that dads can be, that kind of an influence on life in general. Yeah. And not just sporting events. Is you're fine, get up, keep going.
Right.
Bad
Therapy is her newest book.
Bad Therapy, Anxious Generation is Jonathan Haidt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Sorry.
But, so my kids are going back and watching old school TV. By that I mean Full House, and it's so funny to watch that and realize, during G.I. Joe we had those, knowing is half the battle, because the government regulated all TV shows to not just be product placements, which we were okay with, but they had to teach a message of some variety, and so that's why you got the Joe Knows at the end. And so it's so funny to watch Full House and realize this was a popular show, and it's three men, and they're all coming together every half an hour and having this a loving moment where everyone's talking normal, and everything works out in the end. And so maybe that's the gynocentric writing of our childhood of the 80s and 90s, and it's finally taken root and coming to fruition, where the dads are needing to have a more firm hand, or not so much in in that, but also teaching.
But you had all the possible types of dad. You had a morning show host, a rock star, and a comedian, right? Like those are the three normal dad professions, right?
Living in California at the time,
in San Francisco, in what would now be a $1 house. But yeah, the actual modern version of that would be they're running an Airbnb,
and they're three dads actually still too.
Charging hundreds of thousands of dollars a night. Anyway, so but yeah, I mean there is that element of the rub some dirt on it element of parenting that dads are just much more likely to provide. That one of my big culture shocks in having girls even was that girls do require a little bit more sympathy whereas boys, if you react enthusiastically enough, they're going to be totally 10 points, amazing. You don't have boys, but I'm sure you're familiar with just they're essentially indestructible, and they're going to be fine if you just react enthusiastically enough to whatever hurt them.
Yeah, don't look at the baby after they've fallen and looks like they've done damage. Make sure it happens. And if you don't look, then no one knew that you got hurt, so you can't cry. Yeah. Well, something that I'll do that my wife knows is she'll send the kids to me because she knows they're fine, and I'll do my medical assessment for my job and just make sure no bones are broken, no one needs to go to the hospital, and so I'll put them through the rigors. I'm like, nope, no swelling. Everything seems here. You got your ball and socket joint all set here, and you got no pain, right? Okay, I think you're good to go. And the worst that you'll have to do is spend 12 cents on a Band-Aid because it's pretty much glorified sticker.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It is that's definitely an influence that it's important to have to get back on the horse, like literally in the case of falling off a horse, but figuratively. Is that I think again, and actually, I mean, I think Gabrielle Schreier was in part making this point, was that fatherlessness is a big part of the inability to of the anxiousness of the over therapeuticization, where if you don't have that drive to get back on the horse, and so where does that saying come? You get back on the horse because if you don't, it gets so much harder to ride a horse psychologically, right? It gets psychologically so much more difficult if you don't get back on the horse right after you fell. It psychologically becomes so much harder to get back on the horse later. Right? That's where that expression comes from.
Teaching martial arts and stuff, the first thing that you do is how to fall, how to take a hit, because once you realize, I can be hit, being hit in a fight is the normative thing, and so I'm prepared for it, but I also experienced it. And while yes, I could get knocked out from one, if I know how to do it, then then I know, okay, I've been hit, I'm in the fight. Or what some people have taught during training is the first hit is you hit yourself to say, okay, psychologically, I'm doing the thing that I'm scared of, and now I've done the first hit, and now it's time to divide and
you
conquer
see
on that.
football players do this.
Yeah, right. Their teammates are slapping them. Yeah,
they collide with each other or slap each other.
Yeah,
to get into the game, because there is something. That's my experience having played football. There's something about that first hit that it releases the adrenaline to where you can take hits.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely that. And I mean, I'll draw the example to, in a previous life, and I still do this a little through my work, especially with school board candidates, but is talking to first-time candidates and often people who aren't in politics. One of the differences between people who get good advice and surround themselves with good people, and people who are like a babe in the woods politically is their ability to respond to being attacked by their opponent or the media or an advocacy organization that's against whatever they're doing or whatever, right? Is the because in politics you get hit in a way that is completely different from you're never gonna do something at your insurance firm that's going to get a hashtag started about you, right? Like you so it's just so weird that now that you're in politics, these are the kinds of things that can happen to you that just can't in these kind of a normal job, right? And when that happens, it can be absolutely demoralizing. And the first thing I do is we'll sit down, we'll hear you out, we'll talk about it and what we're going to do. But the very next thing we're going to do is, if we can get away with it, we're not going to make a statement right away. We're not going to do it. We're not going to focus. The next thing we're going to do is get you on doors. We're going to get you knocking on doors, because that will help you. First of all, it just helps you refocus on the thing that you should be focused on, and not on Twitter, which is not real life and doesn't matter. But also, one of the ways it's going to help is you will realize just how few people care about this thing that seems like it's the only thing people care about when you're not knocking on doors. It can feel like the entire universe so I've had people who were pastors, and they go back and find old sermons and they're just trashing them for things they said in old sermons, and everything. And it feels like it's the only thing the entire world cares about. And then you go knock on doors, and it genuinely doesn't come up at a single one, right? and then it helps you realize, this wasn't actually a very big deal. The real world does not actually care about this thing, and puts it in perspective. And these are the kinds of things that we need to do in all kinds of aspects of life, and that if you don't just get back on the horse, right, then you're going to have this crippling anxiety about more and more things if you don't just get back into it. Candidates that I could not convince to just go knock on doors again, they're done, right? They're basically done. The campaign is over at that point, right? And that's and there are so many things in life that are that way. If you can't pick yourself up and move on, then you're going to have this one part of your existence that that you're going to be basically avoiding for the rest of your life. And the more you avoid it, the bigger it feels, and the more you feel like you have to do other things to avoid it. And when the answer is don't avoid it, go do it, right? And do the thing again. And like you were saying in what I'm assuming now is the last episode, is you're not bad at this thing. You're just still learning. You haven't learned it yet.
Yeah,
learn it. It is like, and that's true across every human endeavor in life. Right? Is like, no, you're not bad at this. You just haven't learned it yet. Get back on the horse. Let's do it again. You're fine, right? And
explaining that to your kids is key, because I think it's that trust me, here's a reason, and with examples. Like, dad's really bad at this, or dad was bad at this, or let me tell you a story about how this happened. It's the let me tell you about how I walked up the hill 15 miles in the snow, and you go, oh wow, like that's really boring. But then that story sticks with you, and you remember that as a kid, and you're like, oh, Grandpa sacrificed a lot to go to school, and so for him, education was important even when they had nothing, or something along those lines. Yeah. Something else that I was thinking about is how dads can approach moms who, again, you may not have thought about it. You may have not necessarily ceded control, or maybe you have, but go and talk with your wife and sit down and say, like, okay, show me the curriculum. Show me what the plan is for this semester. And if you think like, okay, won't she be suspicious? Good. Tell her I'm here. Like, think about the hard times in your marriages or your lives where it's you and her against everybody, or against whatever it is. Being told like, hey, I'm here too, is one of the reasons why we get married. It's one of the reasons why we have a relationship. It's one of the reasons why we can push our beds together, unlike Lucy and Ricardo weren't allowed to do for reasons. but go into it with a thinking and asking questions, because think about if your wife asked you, hey, that really nerdy thing about presuppositional apologetics, could you tell me about it? How bloody excited would you be to just spill everything? And she might not get all of it, but think about those two questions she asked to try and understand it. Well, that's what you're doing. And I would say don't go in thinking of changing anything, or like thinking that you're fixing something, and don't even let that on, because sometimes we as men, we get told stories and we want to fix it because that's what we're here. But if we're coming into this new, when it's 3 years in or 6 months in, and she's gone through 82 different curriculums, she's made the determination on, this is how we're going to learn spelling, or this is the subjects we're going to focus on. You coming in and upending that because you just want to try for the first time you're a lover, but you're also the dangerous viper who will if she's a good Christian woman, you'll undo her system. And so you're just there to ask questions, which is, so how are they teaching multiplication? Maybe it's through song, maybe it's through flashcards or what have you. But having sit down and being involved in that, and if the kids interrupt it, perfect. You're saying, I'm learning about what you're going to be studying through this, and so you're informing your child that you care. You're taking the time. Again, you could be dead tired, but ultimately this is your responsibility as well. Put food on the table. Check. Why are you putting food on the table? Well, because it's my responsibility. No, because you love these people around your table, and you care about them surviving. And part of their survival is to get through in this world. And that's through you having, weapons of protection, whatever that means, or the ability to put a roof over the head, but also to teach them. And so this is one of the things that you can do where you're just involved in the knowing, because then you can insert yourself and say like, oh, can I do the math because I really like it? Or can we have a day for like, one of the things that Jeff recommended to me ancillarily that I stole from him was a book on world speeches throughout kind of history. And so we've been flying through it at a much quicker pace than he has, but he's got more godly reasons for it. And so we've just been adding it at the end of we do a devotional, and then we do a word of the day to get a new word in our vocabulary. And then we sometimes do one of these speeches and kind of talk about it, because I want them to always have a history thing in their mind of some kind and some variety to show the importance of it. And it's pretty clear in my house that history is very important, because we do learn a lot from that. And that's one of the directions that I want to lead on. But being involved in that and taking on a subject, or, hey, I can do sight words with the child. Here's the board. I'm going to use a silly finger pointer to point at the word, and she's going to do it. And she might not do it right the first time, or and we're going to do it again. Oh, Dad, but Mom only does it one time. Well, let's just try it one more time. And so it's finding just those little areas to do. And maybe you tend to like it and you'll end up doing more. But yeah, what you're saying is the responsibility might be advocated to the wife to find the curriculum, to find what day is what. And your job then is to say, okay, I'm going to support this, and I approve of this. I'm putting my dad's stamp on it, and I will do exactly what she said on the day that it's prescribed to the child.
Well, and maybe she doesn't need help, but it just gives you ideas for how to supplement with something like a book of speeches, or like, oh, I see how this ties in with catechism or whatever. Like is just being more involved in the whole development of
the holistic nature of
it is going to, and so yeah, so honey, I promise I'm not going to change anything yet.
Right. You have to be a trusted advisor. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, one of the best pieces of advice I got in seminary is don't move the piano in the first year.
Right.
Like, that was just like, hey, no matter how small it seems, don't come in and make a bunch of changes when you're coming into a existing church. Be humble. Practice your Chesterton Spence. For anyone who you're listening, do you use that? Your listeners are going to be.
No, okay. It's a little bit too Catholic for me, but
fair enough. I'll explain quickly what a Chesterton Spence or what the idea behind Chesterton Spence is. It's just like you come along a fence on your own property, basically. You come along a fence before you pull it down. Try to find out why it's there.
Yes.
Right? Like
yes.
don't is there maybe someone erected that fence who knew things you don't know.
Right.
And if it's your wife, take it for granted that she did. It's very respectful to your wife to take it for granted that she did. But
with my family, I've added to that, and I've said that I want to build the hedge because I tend to be the first generation of Christian in it. So
right.
I love that saying because it's a good starting point and then continues.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe you should build a hedge where other people have built hedges. Exactly. That's beautiful. And so, yeah, honey, I'm not changing anything, at least not yet. But I just want to know, so that I can think about the way our children are being raised in the nurture and admonition of the Lord in a more fully orbed way, in a more holistic way. And there may be things I can do to supplement what you're doing. There may be some parts that where you're feeling friction now that I can oil up. But again, I'm promising not to change anything yet.
Right.
I'm only going to supplement, at least at first, right?
Yeah.
And that can be a big way of loving your wife, loving your children, and loving God, and pursuing the ultimate goal of raising your children in His nurture and admonition all at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah,
great point.
And
Yeah.
and you'll be stunned. So I mean, we just did one of those speeches, and it got us into a big conversation about how oh wait, the good guys don't always win, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure you guys ended up having that conversation too.
Or sometimes the speech is really good and it does nothing to the audience.
And then it does nothing and they lose. Yeah. This was a great speech and then they got slaughtered. Everyone who heard this speech died. We don't even know why we have it, right? Yeah. And so that's one that's sort of obviously going to come up, and like, oh yeah, yeah, God didn't promise that we're always going to win, huh? Right? Like, and so it's a great way of having these little conversations, and it's not just this book in particular or anything. I'm saying there are all kinds of little ways that you can supplement that will get you to those big spiritual conversations that you're trying to inculcate as a father. So much of the way this is expressed in the scriptures is as you walk by the way.
Yeah.
Right. It was like this stuff just doesn't just come up within the four posts of family worship.
Right. Yeah. Dad opened the Bible. He executed the text. He closed it, and we never talked about it again. Ah, yes.
Right. No. I mean, so many of these conversations have come up for me, literally as we walk by the way. Mm-hmm. We take little nature walks, and that's where the conversations come up. Isn't it kind of incredible the way God designed a duck, where it can walk and swim and fly, and it's built for all those things? Isn't that so cool? How did he come up with that? Yeah. Earthworms and all kinds of, these are the conversations that that we get into all the time. And so that, by the way, when because my kids go to a Christian school, and the Christian school took them to a science museum where all the plaques talked about millions and millions of years. And I don't think anyone at the school had this conversation with them. And I've had this conversation with them enough. My kids are well catechized enough that they is that so she's telling me about the science museum, and she says, oh, and by the way, Dad, it had all this stuff to say about millions of years ago that these things happened, but I noticed they don't even know that God made the world. So how are they supposed to know when all this stuff happened? They don't even know the first thing, which is that God made all of it. And so it's like it's and that came from, like, that specifically came from the As You Walk by the Way. And we read books about dinosaurs.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
And so, but those are the two, I guess those are, so yeah, the literal As You Walk by the Way. And then we're not doing anything super spiritual. We're reading a book about dinosaurs. And what are we going to, whenever I accidentally read the part of the sentence that talks about millions and millions of years ago, I'll be like, but they don't know that. And we just, and we probably had that exact conversation. Like, they don't even know God made the world. How are they supposed to know? How are they supposed to know when there was a Tyrannosaurus? And so
they thought a brachiosaur was a brontosaurus.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and we just had the conversation last night at dinner. We just had the conversation of my boy had gotten the idea that dragons weren't real. I don't know where he got dragons aren't real from.
Boy.
So I said, oh no, dragons were real, and they almost certainly live with humans, and the ones that can't swim really deep or go really deep into a jungle are probably dead.
Probably.
Or clearly dead. The ones that can't hide from humans pretty well are clearly dead by now. And maybe those
Which is
are
survival of the fittest, by the way.
Yeah. Maybe they're all dead, but at least the ones that aren't good at hiding from humans are dead by now. But we talked about how this is clearly just they're clearly coming to wrong assumptions here, because you've got if history is reliable at all, you've got these people writing histories that we rely on for everything else. Mm-hmm. Everything else is accurate, or we're taking it to be accurate, and they describe other animals that we've been able to verify live in the places that they said they were that they said they found them in. And then they say they saw dragons, and they say it exactly the same way they talk about everything else. They're not saying, and then I started having a dream, or and then I passed through a mystical waterfall, or anything like that. They're telling you exactly in the exact same matter of fact. They're saying they saw dragons, so they probably did, right? Like if we believe them, and how many Persians came to that battle, if we believe that's even close to being, if we believe that has something to say historically to us at all, then we should believe them when they say they saw a dragon, because they're saying it in exactly the same way. Doesn't seem like they're embellishing. It doesn't seem like they're entering into fantasy here. They said they saw a dragon. They said in the Punic Wars, they said it took 100 of them to beat it. They found one, a serpent, I think they called it, in a cave, and they said that it took 100 of them to beat it. And you know what? That probably happened because we believe them about how many of them it took to beat the Carthaginians. Why would we think it's so different when they're talking about a serpent they found in a cave? Yeah. They probably found some kind of a dragon. So anyway, is that a side note? But anyway, it's just...
I have the same passion of describing Hannibal's crossing the Alps of elephants. So like, this doesn't happen. It cannot happen. Any historian, if you wouldn't replace elephants, this isn't a thing. And the fact that he won so well tells you that it shouldn't happen against Rome. And the fact that he was recalled because he wasn't winning fast enough should tell you all the things about humanity that shouldn't be the case. But you know what? We take it as truth for that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They had to fire their general and bring in Fabian, right? Like a Fabian strategy of just let them win, just slower.
Yeah.
um,
Well, and I think that's one of the things too that is something dads can do. Is I've met so many people that sadly, I haven't read a book since college, and that's just heartbreaking. Like nothing has interested you. And granted, we do have phones, and we think, I've read articles or I've read tweets or I've read whatever, and that counts as reading. And I think that's the flaw of having those devices, but also the benefit is I don't have to go to the library and hope that my library has a book to look up, who is Jackie Robinson. I can pull that up and show kids exactly what it is. But reading the books and reading to your kids and reading advance them. My oldest daughter and I, we've read The Hobbit and we're going through Lord of the Rings. She goes, man, there's a lot of words in here that I don't understand. It's like, is that taking away from your enjoyment of the story though? No, I still like what's happening. And so it's that here's a book that dad views as important, and I'm also viewing it as important and listening to it. And, we've done this, right? I always bring up there's a joke in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. How did you learn how to do mouth to mouth? Oh, I learned it in French class. And for the longest time, I did not understand the joke. I went through probably all of high school, and then I went, oh, I get that joke now. And so now my kids are at the point where we've watched that, and I was like, this is the joke that it eluded me for many years, and that probably says a lot about my dating life. But that's regardless of the point. But it's like, oh no, explain that joke to us. I was like, oh, I can't. You have to go through the same journey that I did through that joke. But having that ability to enjoy what you don't always understand, and that's kind of what education is. Okay, I didn't get this. I failed at this assignment, or, dad is reading the story to me. The benefits. I mean, you can't find a study that says it's worthless or negatively affects your kids to read to them at any age, at any level, for anything. You could pick up your how to fix hot rods or whatever you normal dads do, and read about the one and only time that the Miami Dolphins won all the games. See, I knew that one, so I'll pick that one. And you can describe the juggernauts of that starting lineup to your kids, and your kids are going to listen, and they might not enjoy sports, but they're going to see you read a book, and they're going to get in their head the idea, oh, if I need to learn something, I can pick up a book and read about it because dad is learning something new. He's sharing it with me, and I don't understand what Hannibal and Carthage and all these things have to do. I understand elephants, battle elephants. What? I don't know what that would look like. So it's just fun to see kids view you as having fun with any subject. So it could be math. Let's do math. I'll show you. Once I revealed to my daughter that I accidentally tricked her into learning algebra by checking her work backwards when we were doing multiplication and division. Mm-hmm. When she got to I'm super nervous about this. I was like, no, watch this. And we did the first problem. I was like, remember when dad told you to check your work? This is exactly what we're doing, what we've done before. And it was like, oh, dad knew a thing, and he I can trust him to lead me on this path. And so next time when she comes to things like, I don't know, calculus or plotting a line or whatever, proving triangles, which is worthless to do, I'm hoping that nerve won't be there as well, because I'm able to teach her in that way. Now my other daughter, she learns in a different style, and that's the weirdest part about having kids is what worked for one won't work for the other. But then yep. what your one child is how that one learns, you can then take that and say, okay, they don't take to the reading, but they take to the, all right, let me read this to you and you do it. And all of a sudden it clicks and you're like, oh, you just learn in a different way. And so by dads being involved in that way, by reading to them, by figuring out how they learn, that's something that dads can actively do. And all the other fun things too. There's a dad that does this YouTube show, home variety show. He's a musician. He sings these little songs for classical conversations. My youngest daughter at 4 knew the areas of the Levant and she still sings that song just randomly. Turkey, Cyprus, Syria, Iran, the Levant, just out of the blue. She could be sick as a dog and she'll have that song stuck in her head. But you can do those things. Those are above and beyond. But just that being active in the way that plays to your strengths as well as a dad, is that other area of adding to the pathos, Aramis. I forget which of the Three Musketeers I'm talking about, but the areas of education that dads can add. That's not just only a mom thing, and it's learning from two. When we had professors in college, why did we like some and like others, but they're different subjects? Well, they didn't all teach the same. You just learn differently from different people, and that's one of the benefits of adding to that and still having control over curriculum, the way that your child. So you're not going to give your kid who's struggling with multiplication, double digit multiplication until you've gone and set up the avenues. But you only know that because you're actively involved in that.
Yeah. And so you raised a funny so when several rounds of fighting about the K through 6 social studies curriculum here in Alberta ago, the big objection from the teacher union was that expecting kindergartners to know the extent of the Roman Empire was not age appropriate. So you reminded me of this when you were talking about.
I just don't know what type of kindergartens you were raising up there, but.
Well, and I happened to have a kindergartner at the time, and I turned to her and said, "Hey, redacted, what roughly, where was the Roman Empire?" And she was going through this thing at the time where she had Egypt and Ireland confused. So she got those
transposed.
She said Ireland and meant Egypt. But other than that, she basically nailed it, right? And not only do kids do fine with that kind of, and there's fun. Anything you repeat enough, they can learn, right? They can memorize things so much better than we give them credit for.
It's why they can pick up a secondary, third languages so much easier.
Yeah. The approach that and so here's a tip. If you're sending your kid to a regular school, it is very likely that they are obsessed with what, at least here in Canada, is called the expanding horizons approach to social studies, which is just that you should start with things most familiar to the kids and work your way backwards to the things least familiar to the kids. But so what that would mean is if you were going to teach a kid in Alberta about French culture, then the order you would do that in is basically just introducing them the concept of, hey, there are people in your neighborhood that are different from you. Then you'll talk about Francophone Albertans specifically, and then you'll talk about the Quebecois, and then the modern Quebecois, and then you'll talk about the exploration and settlement of Canada, and then you'll talk about World War I and World War II, and the French as an ally in that context, and then you'll talk about then you'll talk about Napoleon, then you'll talk about the French Revolution, then you'll talk about France in the Middle Ages, then you'll talk about Charlemagne, and then you'll talk about the Roman and Greek empires, right? And So you may have noticed that's backwards. That's completely and totally. So what you could do is you talk about the Greek and Roman empires first, and from that you build on Charlemagne trying to sort of restore the Roman Empire, and you have a way of understanding Charlemagne that you can't if you didn't start with the Roman Empire. And then by the way, that means when you get to the things most familiar to the child, then they have a way of understanding their place in history that they can't have had without understanding. And it's interesting to me that for all the things they do wrong, the Quebecois themselves do not teach about the Quebecois in that order. They want, by the time they get to themselves, they want the children to understand that they are the heirs of a great and mighty civilization, that they're coming at the end of it. So they do start from the Roman Empire and work their way forward in order until they get to the modern Quebecois. And it's
boy, could you imagine trying to teach church history that way?
Oh yeah.
Oh, man.
So, all right, we're going to start with Joel Osteen and work our way back. It's like, oh, good, shoot me now. But yeah, no, it's insane. And by the way, I occasionally encounter Christians who think that we can't teach history this way with this content-rich, sequential, starting with the things least familiar to kids. And I go, that's fascinating. When you teach the Bible, where do you start?
Mm-hmm. Well, John 1:1.
Maybe some people do. I don't think most Christian elementary school teachers start with John 1:1. What they usually start
in the original
with
Greek. Yeah. Oh no.
What they usually start with is Genesis.
Yeah.
They're starting with the thing most distant, least familiar, and most foundational to everything else they're going to teach. And then
because why does John 1 start with Genesis 1? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And then they work their way forward in a content-rich way. And it's like, oh yeah, you already know that this is how you teach the Bible. And if you taught the Bible in this newfangled way that you're trying to teach secular history, if you taught the Bible in that way, your school would not exist, right? Man. Like no one would send their kid, because they're sending their kids for the Christian content, and they would not be sending their kids to your school if you were teaching the Bible in the same way you insist you have to teach history.
Great. You lose so much context that way. Wow, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, well, and you lose an actual rich and real understanding of the things most familiar to you, right? Like, and so not only can kids handle the content, but have you talked to a kid? What do they like? They like talking about the exotic stuff.
Yeah.
They like knights and castles is one of the most common ones, right? Like, is they're gonna go to knights and castles. They're gonna go. They're gonna go. They like learning about the Roman Empire.
How about dinosaurs? Right. So there's you, and then there's oil, and then the oil it was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if we taught about dinosaurs that way? Good grief.
And then millions of years, nothing happened.
Yeah. Okay. So you're familiar with a sparrow. Okay, we're gonna work backward. Oh, yeah.
This is why dads need to be involved in education.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, exactly. It's I do think that's another example of something that's kind of gone sideways in the teaching profession. That just if if more dads were involved, just would never have been allowed to get there.
Yeah. Well, think about like our heroes, right? So women's heroes are. How can I see myself in the role? So it's me centered and outward. Not always, and it's not always the most negative approach that you can possibly take. But if Star Wars Acolyte has taught us anything, it's media is dead and we should bury it. But what do men aspire to? Men aspire to be Superman. Oh, you see yourself as a maximum strength, flying, Kansas. Born and bred city boy or country boy who always does the right thing. And you go, no, but I want to be like him. So it's always that projection forward and out. And, King Arthur, why do we like the Camelot story? We see the tragic downfall, but it's like, no, there's someone with an ideal and we can aspire to the ideals. And we realize that Lancelot and having a best friend is not always a good thing. All right. Well, turning then to the other parent, what can moms do? And of course, I'm going to say use inclusive language. I'm a dad, and you should say moms and dads every time. No, I'm not calling for that whatsoever. When it says, okay, moms follow me, I follow just as long. I don't protest, and it's always my kids who are like, and dad. I'm like, it's fine. It doesn't matter that much that I'm the one male teacher or, one or two male teachers in the group, and that's fine. I think we care less about being identified as anything, barring any political connotations to that.
By which, again, state regulators, he means a male facilitator in no professional capacity.
Yeah. No, I'm not. It's just introducing concepts. Yes, exactly. But yeah, so include. I think that's easy to do for just include dads, though. But have ways that dads can be a part of the co-ops and the 4-H's, and also in the picking the curriculum. He will come over here and here's what I'm thinking of this, and you may have you may have an idea of what you want to do, but maybe you don't know exactly which one to do. So when we were thinking about a spelling curriculum for my oldest, my wife tasked me with finding the one that I wanted them to do. And I looked between the two, and here's one. They kind of give a list, but then this other one has the concepts and why is the English language so screwed up, and are there rules to it? And I'm like, there are rules to spelling in the English language? No one has told me this. I am 40 years old, and I have to learn now that there was a semblance of order to spelling in the English language. That's amazing. So that's the one that I went for, and it's one of those things where it's like, well, we're gonna have to go through this again, and I am perfectly fine with that because I want the order and structure, the bones there, and then you can glob on and you can make your whole person that way. It's if you understand there's a pattern, if you understand there's a structure, and that actually coincides well with the learning style of my oldest. So I knew my child, I knew how she learned, I knew what would be the areas that she could pick from. But my wife is the one that said, okay, now's the time that we should start the spelling aspect to their education. And she asked me to actually make real measurable decision. And it's not just, they're going to use purple pens or the pink pens. Well, that's the give your kids that decision in their education. But for the dads, include them and ask them real questions and force those kind of small decisions on them that include them into it. And you're showing there the proper place of authority. You're in the biblical basis, and you're saying this is important to us, and hopefully that comes alongside. Obviously, you're not going to be able to force dads who don't care. So unfortunately, that's not going to be the message. But that's one area where sometimes dads feel, well, I don't want to be the tutor. I don't want to do this because it's just, I'm always going to be the outsider to that. Guess what? We want to feel included sometimes too. And so holding us by the hand and bringing us in is something that you have to do with us as well, because just like how women have their own proclivities to child rearing, so do men.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, it is, one of the things I would say is, if dad is, doing the leading as he should be in terms of family worship, then just as I think it's a good idea for dad to come alongside and say, okay, what are you doing? What are you doing with the curriculum so that I can come alongside and be more holistic and integrate, so that mom be looking for ways to integrate what we're learning in family worship with what we're learning, because here's why. Look, I know for a fact that we have in Calgary and now in Lethbridge, we have chosen Christian education for our children, and that is not the best education available for those who are simply listening. That was in quotation marks. They're not receiving the objectively best academic education that they could be receiving in either place. We have better options in both places. But for us, the most important part is that we want our children to realize that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. I've already said in what I think is this episode that my daughter said, how are they supposed to know when a Tyrannosaurus lived? They don't know that God made the Tyrannosaurus, right? Is the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. If you don't know that, you haven't learned it. There isn't the possibility of having a strong academic education without the fear of the Lord. It's not just that that would be undesirable. It's actually impossible. What you will actually produce is what I can't remember who said this. You will actually produce highly technically skilled barbarians. You're not actually producing educated children in that way, right? And actually, the person who introduced that phrase to me, he immediately went to was it McNamara, the guy who was in charge in Vietnam?
Yeah.
He said the epitome of a highly skilled barbarian. Did you find the quote while I was?
Stephen Muller.
Okay.
President of Johns Hopkins University.
That sounds right.
So it's just to pull the quote, universities are turning out highly skilled barbarians because we don't provide a framework of values to young people who more and more are searching for it. And that fits in well with our show because we may have ushered the phrase Christian worldview one or two times in the show. So
absolutely. Okay, so that's definitely the quote I was remembering. So yeah, thank you. Good pull.
Usually I'm doing that on Jeff's show for him in real time.
Exactly. He's doing it in the chat on our show. And there's usually more delay It's amazing to see how quickly you work, because you're usually watching it on a couple second delay, and
That's
then
right.
the delay of typing it into the chat, and yeah, you're good. Anyway, so so yeah, it's again, it's not that the better education is simply undesirable. It's actually not better. It's actually not an education. It's actually just the production of highly skilled barbarians. And so having recognized that, then what's the imperative in Christian education? What it's to I think this is even in Alberta law, and it's the perfect word for this. It's that it permeates every other aspect of the education. That there is no aspect of the education that is not Christian. That the Christian education is permeating all aspects of the education. By the way, that is a legal requirement for Christian schools in Alberta, and any specialized schools are legally required for the specialized aspect to permeate the curriculum and culture of the school. And yeah, it's the perfect word for Christianity needs to permeate every aspect of the education. So that's one thing that moms can be doing, is taking what we're learning in family worship and making sure that it permeates. And I know moms are already doing that, but just in a like I want to encourage that in a very self-conscious way. How can we apply very specifically what we heard in the sermon this Sunday, or what we learned in family worship as a family, or what the kids came home talking about after they went on a nature walk with Dad, and they learned about the way God made ducks, or whatever. Right? Like so that's how you integrate this godly design as you walk by the way. It's also what keeps your kids from seeing the subjects in isolation.
Yeah. I was thinking about that too. It's dads have been scared correctly into not going the route that their forefathers have, where my kids know that I love them. I told them once, and if I've changed my mind, I'll let them know. And so it's your daughters will either get the love of a father, or they'll find someone who can. And so we've been scared correctly into that. And so it's like, are you willing to let another entity in whatever shape or form that takes on of this curious mind finding, what happens when drug use is introduced to the body? And so is it going to be you having the frank conversation, unlike what Dare did, Dare being the old school way of telling kids that smoking weed is akin to funding terrorism, and it also kills small children when you run them over, and then you realize, but Uncle John smokes weed and he's just fine, and then you try the harder drugs because, well, they lied about weed. What else are they lying about when it's crack cocaine? And funny enough, the government lied a lot about crack cocaine too, but for different reasons. But so having that first touchstone point being, and both parents too. I think about like the talk that every father is supposed to dread. Having that with both, the mom taking the dad into it and having those weird conversations that even the dad might not like, going to get whatever pads or anything from the store and just go, all right, but suck it up. You birthed the child, and guess what? You have to do everything. You have to do everything. And having that, that double-barreled approach of both of father and a mother there at those opportune times, and realizing that it's that you never know which point in their life is going to be memorable to them. I only recently watched Inside Out 2, and so I'm always talking about like, oh, here's a core memory. But I think about, I have a whole bookshelf of books that I got for my kids that I read when I was in 4th and 5th grade, when I really adopted more of a reading persona. But those ones were instrumental to that. And I wanted to have those so that my kids could add to it, but also see the books that inspired dad. And I might not even like those books anymore, but those were the books that did it. And having that, that moment with both a dad or a mom, or both a dad and a mom, you never know what those are. And so you want those important points to be introduced within a Christian worldview, as you're saying, very important, must permeate. But I do agree that's phenomenal word for that. But then also be attacked by both sides and introduced from both sides. If I can add one more things that mom can do, I know we don't do the whole 5 love languages anymore, but there are words of affirmation that dad really enjoys. And I don't know, maybe I'm just talking for me, but we were talking about the Vikings, and I read the little paragraph of introduction. I said, there was probably this thing that helped them navigate that we don't know actually exists, where it was a stone that could have cut through the clouds, and they could help to circumnavigate better by sunlight or stars. And so that was a big thing that got in the way of a lot of people. And then I read the next paragraph where they said exactly what I did. And my wife went, how did you know that? And kids, your dad knows so many things where he'll do that. And man, I didn't need any bump in pay. I didn't need anything else. But that one comment was enough to lift spirits, and to do it in front of my kids was the biggest benefit, because I want them to take it seriously. History is important. And then there are things that you can know before you know them, that you're able to share with others, and that it's a sticking point for times like these, where it's like, hey, I know a thing, let me add to the discussion. And my daughter actually did that today, where we're reading the story together, and she's like, oh, these people are eating oat cakes, but there's so many oat cakes, they got to get sick of it. The very next line is, and they were going to be very sick of oat cakes. And she's like, I did the thing that dad does. And it was a giggle moment for all of us. But yeah. So yeah.
So I've got one more thing to add.
Perfect.
Which is all right. So help for mom, because dad probably already gets this. But and so this is help for dad if you didn't. But I think mom needs to understand why this is important. We have a rule. It's not actually a rule, especially not in the way that I'm about to phrase it. But this captures the spirit of the rule. Always read the plaque. So the reason I think dad already understands this is for the same reason that I think God told dad to put up the stones so that kids will ask, is men more naturally are going to put up the stones to memorialize a place, and are more naturally going to want to read the plaque. So mom, you can help in two ways. If dad is there, you are on team, always read the plaque. You're excited about it, we're going to read the plaque. I know, Mom, you probably aren't excited about reading the plaque. Dad is, you're not. That's the most common.
Mm.
But Mom, pretend you're excited about reading the plaque because the kids will pick up on it if you're not.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And it's extremely helpful. You will learn more about the history of your place, wherever it is you live. You'll learn more about it by just reading the plaques. Whatever plaque is available at the park that your kids play at, or at the on the walking trail, or do you guys have the roadside plaques as so much in your area? Some places do. Some places
sure.
don't,
Usually it's connected to a park or something like that, in memoriam or war memorial or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, well, yeah, a lot of them were specifically earmarked for like war memorials and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I get one in Alberta, we have them very frequently as like it's just a spot to kind of get off the road, stretch your legs, throw some things away. Maybe there's a bathroom there, maybe there's not. Maybe there's a playground there, maybe there's not. But it's but that's where they'll put, the just rest areas to just pull off the road for a second is where they'll put the Alberta's history, and you can read about something that happened near here, you can get so much local history and be so much more connected to the place where you live, and like in ways that you never, they're never going to pick up from a regular curriculum. How would a regular curriculum replicate the hyper local? Sort of history. So, like I didn't know that where we now live is the place where the first flight across the Rocky Mountains was completed, and it happened exactly as you might imagine. Some guy from World War I got bored and decided, I think I could fly across the Rocky Mountains. And no, I'm not going to wait for planes to get a little bit better to where I can do it without rocks without cliff faces on both sides of me. I'm gonna do it right now when it's at its most dangerous it will ever be.
That's right. If I survive the Kaiser, I can survive the Rockies. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, so yeah. Anyway, and so that happened. He landed right here in Lethbridge before stretching his legs and flying up to Calgary, which is where he actually wanted to be. And so it's stuff like that you're. Where would you go to find that in a book? Right.
Right.
But you can pick up all this history that will connect you to the place that you live, by just reading the plaques, by just going to the historical markers where you live. So I'll encourage, Mom, you're probably less naturally enthused about that than Dad is, but for the sake of your kids and all of you sort of getting that connection to the place you live, it would be good for you to be enthused about that. And even, if you take your kids to the park and Dad's not there, see if you can get them to read the plaque.
Right.
They might actually, your kids are probably actually interested in doing that.
Yeah. Or, oh, Dad's not here, I'm going to read the plaque. You don't know how to read. Like, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
The speeches book, my youngest, who's, starting her sight words, Dad, I want to read the speech today because Sissy read it the day before because it was a smaller one. Like, well, you need to be able to learn to read. Well, all right, can we do our sight words afterwards? It's like, oh, kid, you fell right into my trap. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, and let me add one more to the dad's side is be interested in their friends and what they did that day and ask those things. And remember, like, last week, Billy wasn't there with you. Is he feeling better now? Having that connection of that, where you might not care about Billy or anything about the societal makeup of what the co-op or what's happening, but you know what you do care about? You care about your kid, you care about their friends, and you want them to know that you care about those things. They're not going to go, oh, you remember that, Dad? Your wife will probably go, you remember that kid's name? And I'll be like, yeah, I have a cheat sheet. I've got the picture. I've got the name. I'm going to forget it about 10 seconds from now, but I'm going to remember Billy was sick than the week before. So it's that being excited for the benefits that your wife or your husband bring to the table as well. So, yeah.
I've tried throwing my kids a curveball, and occasionally, rather than ask, what did you learn today? I'll ask some kind of social emotional question. I'm not using that as the weasel word for CRT, like it might be in a kid's school, but more of a social oriented question, like, who did you help today, or did you get closer with anyone this week, or something like that. I throw my kids a curveball. It's funny.
Yeah. What was your favorite part about today? Is something that we asked.
Okay. Yeah. Of my two oldest kids, my girl is the one that gets weirded out by that question. And my boy is the one who's all too happy to jump in and be like, which is, I understand, normally works the other way around.
Right.
But yeah, that's one of the things I've been doing to try to get more involved and understand their relationships a little better, because otherwise I'm only hearing when there's a problem or there's drama.
Exactly.
And it's nice to hear. It's nice to hear that. Oh yeah, I got to know so and so a little better.
All right. Well, I promised at the first episode that we might have things to say. We've given you 2 episodes, and we had things to say clearly, and we probably left things off the list. So hopefully this has been an inspiration to dads to conquer the space and to work by the sweat of your brow. And that also means in your kids' lives as well. And that's not a curse of the sin, but you might also have to sweat to work and then sweat a little bit more once you get home and go forth and command the garden to expand, and that's your role as well. You sometimes even do that with your kids. So that was my desire in this one, Jeff. I always appreciate you, but also appreciate the help in this episode. Do your plugs so that we can check you out at your spots where you need help as a parent, and also taming the government in any fashion, in any government.
Yeah, so Patrick and I know each other, well, mostly through Patrick being generally awesome, but largely through the Anarchist Bible Study podcast. That's with me and my friend Pastor Josh, who has recently planted in South Dakota. And we occasionally remember that we are a Bible study, walking through Revelation and looking at the political theology lessons that we can learn from various parts of the Bible. Usually Revelation. Occasionally, people will throw money at us and have us talk about Judges instead, or which Patrick did, or other parts of the Bible. And of course, Revelation is one of the parts of the Bible that is most reliant on all the other parts of the Bible too. So where you're gonna visit a lot of other places when you're in Revelation. So we've been doing that, and so that's so you can find that at on your favorite podcatcher or on YouTube at Anarchist Bible Study, and then I, as Patrick mentioned, my full-time job is I run the Alberta Parents Union, which is a school choice and parental rights advocacy organization in the Canadian province of Alberta, and or at least it's in Alberta for however long that remains a Canadian province. Let's put it that way.
The country of Alberta, yes.
The sovereign the sovereign estate of Alberta. Anyway, and so so one of the things we do is that we fight back against federal overreach, for instance, into Alberta education. We've got that's our active petition right now, over 5,000 signatures telling Ottawa to stay out of education policy, which, if you don't know, it is possible to not have a federal Department of Education. The American mind finds it hard to comprehend, but it's true. Canada has
that aged-old education, the Department of Education, from way back in 1980. Yes.
Yeah. Which you may also recognize as the year every measurable quality of education started to drop. So Canada has no federal Department of Education. That's left up to the provinces, and the provinces, to various extents, leave it up to even more local administration. But certainly no federal mandates, no federal department, and almost no federal funding. That one gets a little, unfortunately, squishy, but almost no federal funding. And yet Canada has across the board, Canadian provinces outperform comparable American states. I'll put it that way. And so anyway, including Alberta, which is second in reading, second in science, and seventh in math in the world on the most recent Program International for Student Achievement. Student assessment, sorry, is what PISA stands for. Anyway, and so yeah, we fight for parental authority in education. I would say that we see school choice as a means to that end, not as the end in itself. And so we're fighting for parental authority in education, and so you can find that at albertaparentsunion.ca. The whole front page is a opportunity to sign up for my emails. You will get if you give me your real address or you don't fill in an address, you will be put on the outside of Alberta list, and you won't be sent the very, very particularly only if you live in Alberta. would be interested in this kind of stuff, you'll get more general interest. Although you'll basically get everything, and you can decide how to apply it in your area. But we are at least somewhat mindful of not sending that to everybody when it doesn't apply. And yeah, your you can probably find out that your wherever you live has similar issues to the issues that we're talking about, and apply it in your area. And yeah, that's the main way that's the main way we advocate is by the email. So you'll get our flagship work there. But then I also travel around and speak and knock on doors and that kind of stuff as well. So, but yeah, so the Alberta Parents Union and the Anarchist Bible Study are the main two places you can find me. You can find me at JParkYYC, which YYC stands for Calgary, where I no longer live, but I'll get around to that eventually, maybe.
Dropping bombs on the NEA from on high.
Yeah. I will make fun of your local teachers union probably if you hang around long enough.
Yeah. It's great.
That's particularly true if you live in some states that I have experience with, like Arkansas or Texas or Tennessee or Virginia. But even if you live in Michigan or Iowa or just places where I have friends, and I have friends almost everywhere, then I'll get around to making fun of your teachers union too, I promise. And yeah, I tweet about theology, church history, and education basically constantly. So if you've liked this show, you'll probably like my Twitter feed. Yeah, that's, and I sometimes preach and teach, but nothing to point you to there right now.
That's right. We all preach and teach because we're all fathers here, and so hopefully this episode has been inspiring. It's been cathartic for me to sometimes be the solo male and understand that I'm in a blessed position to have the spot where I'm at. But knowing like the person that I am, I could always use motivation to do more or to do things differently. That was the inspiration for this. So Jeff, I thank you for that. And if you want to show that to show your kids that you like reading books and books that may be challenging to you, you can head over to caveofthecross.com and go through the books with us that we're doing. So you can be an inspiration to your children to read hard books that maybe you don't know all the words to, but that's what we help you with. And we split up the episode into short clips, as this one will be done as well. Somehow, and you can take them in piecemeal form or in whole episodes and enjoy them from there. So, as always, we say thank you, and we'll see you next time.